to A Healer in Every Home. I'm your host, Burke Lennihan, and we're here today with Janine Gilarde. Janine is a registered nurse, certified health and wellness coach, and a holistic nutrition consultant. She's received training from the Center for Mind-Body Medicine, the Institute of Functional Medicine, and is currently getting certified as a culinary health educator through the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So Janine will be telling us about foods that make up an anti-cancer diet. As a disclaimer, we're not claiming that these foods will actually cure cancer. Janine?
Well, thank you, Burke, for having me. So working in healthcare, I have seen my share of many chronic diseases, including diabetes, obesity, and of course, cancer. I am profoundly aware that there is so much potential for preventing, treating, and even reversing most of these problems through very inexpensive lifestyle changes, including diet. So unfortunately, doctors don't know much about nutrition, which is no surprise. There is virtually no training that they're getting when they're in school. And of course, in research, whole foods get less money and much less attention than drugs do, even though studies show that food can dramatically affect health. I don't know that the pharmaceutical companies are going to fund scientists to study food.
Right.
Where's the money in that? The American Institute of Cancer Research, however, does support the idea that certain foods can help prevent cancer.
Right. So Janine, it can get really confusing for people to figure out what they should be eating. There's so many different diets out there. What do you recommend for cancer-preventing foods?
Well, one important thing to remember, no single food can protect against cancer by itself, but there are 7 categories, fruits and vegetables that help with cancer, and I'm just going to mention a few in each category, so it's certainly not a full list. So cruciferous vegetables, cauliflower, broccoli, and cabbage. We have berries, so raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, alliums, which are your garlic, onions, and shallots, leafy greens like kale, collards, and chard. We have mushrooms, enoki, shiitake, maitake. Then we have lycopene-rich foods. So those are tomatoes, watermelon, and guava. And carotene-rich, so carrots, winter squash, and mango. So the old adage, variety is the spice of life, holds true here. Unfortunately, with the standard American diet known as SAD, how ironic is that? These are foods that we're just not getting enough of.
So true. You know, the typical diet has way too much processed foods like white flour, white sugar, unhealthy fats.
That's right. And if we could just move more towards a whole food plant-based diet, then we would all be healthier.
So I think I'm healthy. Should I be concerned about cancer?
Unfortunately, Burke, we should all be concerned about cancer because the world is just so toxic. After decades on the war on cancer, we've really made very little headway. More than 1 million people in the United States alone get cancer each year, and 1 in 2 people at some point will have cancer in their lifetime. It's really pretty staggering. From my perspective, the majority of all cancer is preventable by modification of lifestyle and environmental exposures.
So I've been hearing a lot about inflammation. What about the role of inflammation?
That's a great question. It can be caused by a lot of factors, too many to list, but one of them is a toxic diet. So when you think about the standard American diet, foods are refined, they're stripped of all their nutrients, they're chemically altered, processed, and because of that, they tend to be inflammatory. 2 of the most common inflammatory foods are vegetable oils like canola and factory farmed animal foods. So foods can affect your body's inflammatory response, and when you have an insult to the body, whether it's physical like a cut or a sprain, or whether it's chemical or emotional, the body will have an inflammatory process to try to heal itself. The problem is that when we get into situations where, things like chronic stress and other things we've got going on, we have inflammation all the time. and the body's always trying to heal something or thinks it's trying to heal something, and then you have a state of chronic inflammation, like PSA, and a prostate is an inflammatory marker. So, staying away from foods that cause inflammation and adopting an anti-inflammatory diet is something everyone really should do. After all, prevention is the best medicine, and not treating a chronic illness after it develops.
So do you have general guidelines for people to follow?
Here's what I recommend. The bulk of your diet should come from fresh, organic vegetables and legumes. Avoid the standard American diet, the refined sugars, the grains, the wheat, and GMOs, because these foods and the factory farm meats cause inflammation. Rather than opt for the cheap carbohydrates in the form of processed grains and sugars, for instance, choose complex carbohydrates, so plants. And you also want to be sure to include some whole grains, quinoa, amaranth, and buckwheat, and protein from plant sources. So this might be nuts, seeds, legumes, and also quality protein from animals and fish.
So quality proteins, can you explain that?
Well, most people eat about twice as much animal protein than they should, and animal protein influences the levels of a particular growth hormone, which not only affects the growth of healthy cells, but can also encourage cancer cell growth. Animal products are only as nutritious as the food they are fed and the care they get while being raised. So factory farm meats are predominantly confined, and they're fed corn, which is genetically modified, and this raises the level of unhealthy fat in the animals. So quality protein, on the other hand, comes from pasture-raised, grass-fed organic meats that are high in healthy fats. And when choosing fish and seafood, you want to look for wild caught on the label. Farm-raised fish are fed antibiotics. So to avoid this, just eat smaller cold water fish, so salmon, herring, sardines.
So let's get back to plants. How do they help?
So plant foods, they're the only foods that contain anti-inflammatory phytonutrients. We cannot produce those on our own. They have the purpose of shielding plants from predators, and they provide the vibrant colors in plants. So when we eat those naturally colorful meals, we obtain the same benefits. Plus, they are high in antioxidants, and the antioxidants, again, that are found in vegetables are developed to protect a plant from its damaging environment, including toxins and pollution. So it's really no surprise that they can be used to prevent disease.
So we're talking about food as medicine, which is an idea that goes all the way back to Hippocrates in ancient Greece.
Absolutely. And the good news is that this idea is slowly making its way into our modern world. Approaches like lifestyle medicine, which promote food as medicine to prevent disease. And the case in point, Dr. Dean Ornish, he has famously shown how a low-fat vegetarian diet, along with other lifestyle measures, can reverse, yes, I said reverse, heart disease. He tested a similar diet for men with prostate cancer, and what he found was that men had a drop in their PSA levels, meaning that the cancer was not advancing and might actually be reversing. And when you think about it, no medication can do that.
Great. So what about the research?
There have been numerous studies done on berries, cruciferous vegetables, and mushrooms. Berries are one of the highest antioxidant foods in existence, and that is one reason they provide protection against cancer. They are true superfoods, and research shows that berries induce cancer cell death, lower inflammation, and have proven to measurably slow tumor growth. So when it comes to plant foods, I would recommend going organic for most because they don't have the toxic chemical residues. And you can look to the Environmental Working Group. They publish a list of the most contaminated plant families, and unfortunately berries is one of them.
So what special cancer-fighting properties do cruciferous vegetables have?
Well, many of them are rich in glutathione, commonly known as the body's master antioxidant because it is a high free radical scavenging abilities. And cruciferous vegetables are also associated with decreased risk of breast cancer and have even shown to increase survival in women after being diagnosed with breast cancer. They also top the charts as one of the best foods when it comes to reducing inflammation. And one of the last groups I'd like to mention is mushrooms. So there's an enormous body of research on medicinal mushrooms, the ones that I mentioned earlier.
The enoki, shiitake, maitake, yeah?
Yes. They boost the immune system and fight cancer.
Mm.
And mushrooms are unique in that they contain aromatase inhibitors. These are compounds that can block the production of estrogen, which is helpful in protecting against hormone-related cancers like breast cancer.
Really? So they have aromatase inhibitors, the drug that's most commonly given to women with breast cancer.
Absolutely, Burke, yes. So food as medicine. And it turns out even the most commonly eaten mushrooms, the white or portobello, they also have a high anti-aromatase activity.
Yeah.
One thing is to keep in mind, and they should never be eaten raw. So a potentially carcinogenic substance called agaritine is in them. So always make sure that they're cooked.
So how many servings of cancer protective plant foods should people aim for?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned cancer protective because not all plants have the same potential. So iceberg lettuce, for example, offers no benefit. And high sugar fruits like grapes and bananas, they're just not as beneficial as something like blueberries, for instance. So we really do have a choice. I really believe that knowledge is power. And I tell individuals that you want to strive for 10 servings of the recommended plants and vegetables a day.
What?
Yeah, I set the bar high. But, as I mentioned before, no one food can prevent cancer, so you want to aim to include a variety of colors with each meal. And if you're not sure what a serving size is, I like to use what's called the plate method. If you look at your lunch or your dinner plate, 50% should come from vegetables that grow above the ground, 25% starchy vegetables or whole grains, and 25% protein.
So it would be an easy way to fit in all those servings.
Yeah, great question. So I love smoothies.
Mm-hmm.
It is a great way to kind of sneak in all those plants and vegetables in. I created a quick and easy anti-inflammatory rainbow smoothie. It includes vibrant colors and it has yellow from turmeric, which is an anti-inflammatory spice.
Mm.
I added a pinch of black pepper just to increase the bioavailability. Mm-hmm. So the recipe I'm sharing, people can feel free to substitute different colors, but for red, I love my organic strawberries. I use 1/4 cup. Green, a handful of spinach. Blue and purple, 1/4 cup of those lovely blueberries. And orange, very simple, 1/2 orange. Mm-hmm. And then the yellow, which is the spice. So 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric with about the same amount of black pepper. Mm-hmm. For the liquid, I recommend 1 cup of nut or plant milk. And then you just throw it in the blender and enjoy.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So what would be some good books and websites for resources?
One that I love, I just saw him speak at the Lifestyle Conference, Dr. Grieger. He has a great website, nutritionfacts.org, and his book, How Not to Die.
Which is totally filled with research.
Totally, yes.
Every chapter.
Research-based.
Tons and tons of research.
Absolutely. Same with his website.
Mm-hmm.
Forks Over Knives, that's a great website. It's totally plant-based. It has a lot of recipes. Mm-hmm. And a book, The Anti-Cancer, A New Way of Life by David Servin Schreiber, as well as the accompanying website, anticancerbook.com, And as I mentioned before, the Environmental Working Group, ewg.org, for information about organic foods. And the Monterey Bay Aquarium also has good resources for fish and seafood. That's at seafoodwatch.org. Yeah, so thank you, Burke, for letting me share about nutrition for cancer prevention. I'd love to hear about how you can help people with homeopathy.
Sure. Well, I'd like to talk about homeopathic remedies for people undergoing conventional cancer treatment, chemo and radiation. And that doesn't mean that I'm recommending conventional treatment. Just for the record, cancer is being cured all over the world with a variety of natural therapies. I personally know a woman who cured herself of breast cancer following a macrobiotic diet, which is all cooked food. Another woman who cured herself of breast cancer using a raw foods diet. And a third woman who cured herself of uterine cancer, actually, with, she didn't change her diet. She did Reiki, positive affirmations, prayer, and other spiritual techniques. And as for curing cancer with homeopathy, that's being done effectively in India, where homeopathy is very much a part of the national healthcare system. There are several hundred homeopathic hospitals and homeopathic medical schools in India. A clinic in India has developed protocols for treating cancer, and one of their protocols was tested and found effective for brain cancer, tested at MD Anderson, which is one of the top cancer research facilities in the world. But in this video, we're not trying to cover natural cancer cures because it's such a huge topic and it's already been so well documented.
So how can people find out more then?
I would start with the video series, The Truth About Cancer, and its companion website, thetruthaboutcancer.com, which has a lot of good information. I could also recommend a couple of books, Embrace, Release, Heal by Lee Forston, and Radical Remission by Kelly Turner. All three sources will reveal many different natural therapies that people have used successfully to cure their cancer.
So, if homeopathy and other methods can cure cancer, why do so many people go for chemo and radiation?
It's a good question. Unfortunately, it's the only cancer treatment that's covered by insurance in this country. So it's the only one that's available for many people. So I know many people who would have preferred a natural cure, but they've had to use conventional treatment. I want to support them as much as I can, so I give them homeopathic medicines for the side effects that they're likely to encounter.
Yes. And what would be an example of a side effect that you can prevent with homeopathy?
Well, nausea and vomiting are typical side effects of chemotherapy, and I've seen it effectively prevented with Nux vomica, a common remedy for nausea and vomiting, easily available in health food stores. You can tell by the name that it's for vomiting, Nux vomica.
Yeah.
A dose right before the chemo treatment can be an effective preventive, and if the person still feels sick afterwards, they can keep taking frequent doses until the nausea subsides. For radiation, a common side effect is radiation burns on the skin, which can be treated with calendula, a homeopathic medicine for burns, cuts, scrapes, things like that. I've actually heard it's being used in hospitals like Dana-Farber. Homeopathic calendula cream is also available in health food stores.
And another effect of radiation in patients with head or neck cancer is mouth sores. I don't know if you have anything for that.
Right. And mouth sores are a big problem for these patients because they can make swallowing so painful. As you know, Janine, being a nurse, people with cancer can go into a state called cachexia, where they're losing weight and just wasting away. It's really important to keep up their nutrition, and that's difficult if they can't swallow. So it's important to treat these mouth sores. Mercurius and Borax are excellent remedies for that. I know Borax sounds like laundry powder, but the homeopathic medicine Borax can be an effective remedy for mouth sores.
And where do people find these?
Well, Nux vomica, calendula, and Mercurius are easily available in health food stores. People might have difficulty finding Borax there, but they can easily find it online. There are 3 other remedies I'd like to recommend which are available online and really helpful for people going through chemo and radiation. They are cadmium sulfate, X-ray, and radium bromatum, and each of them treats different side effects of conventional cancer treatment.
Okay,
Okay.
X-ray sounds like a really interesting remedy, and I know that you usually make homeopathic remedies by diluting something in water several times, most often starting with an herbal tincture, but how would you make a homeopathic remedy from X-rays?
Well, you're smart. Most people don't even know how they're usually made. So for X-ray, what you do is you take a bowl of distilled water and you expose it to X-ray radiation. Then you use that water to make the remedy. I know it sounds woo-woo, but the fact is, it works. It's been used in homeopathy for more than 100 years, and I found it to be effective in my own practice.
And so in what situation would you be using it?
Well, radiation burns would be one reason,
Yeah.
but the special reason I would use it is a side effect I haven't mentioned yet, and that's deep fatigue. It's so effective that we use it in many cases of fatigue, even when the person hasn't been exposed to radiation. The great homeopathic masters of the past use it to restore the vital energy, as they called it. They called it rousing the vitality of the patient. I had a chance to use it once for a client suffering from fatigue. She was an acupuncturist, and before she came to see me, she had explored many possible treatments and many possible reasons for her fatigue in the realm of conventional medicine, holistic medicine, and traditional Chinese medicine, her own field. Nothing was working, so she came to see me as a last resort. She said the fatigue started after a car accident, and at first I tried the remedies for the long-term effects of a concussion. That didn't work. And by the way, this is one of hundreds of cases just in my own practice to show that homeopathy does not work by the placebo effect. The wrong remedy will not work no matter how much the client wants to believe in it and is hoping that it will work. Anyway, I kept asking her questions, and I finally found out that she had had dozens of X-rays after the accident because her injuries were so extensive. I gave her the homeopathic medicine X-ray, and it worked for her fatigue. That's why I feel confident recommending it for the fatigue caused by conventional cancer treatment.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you had a lot of experience with it.
Right.
How about the other two remedies that you mentioned, the other unusual ones?
Well, radium bromatum overlaps a lot with X-ray, except it's specifically helpful for radiation burns. Cadmium sulf is primarily used for the nausea from chemotherapy if Nux vomica does not work. I recommend that my clients try the easily available ones first. But if Nux and calendula don't work, then order radium bromatum, X-ray, and cadmium sulf online because they're really specifically helpful for people with cancer. They're inexpensive. You can get the 3 remedies for about $20 total.
Okay. Well, how do you recommend that people take the remedies if they're just, getting them online or at the store?
Sure. Well, the choice is easier in a health food store because the potency is almost always 30C, a very standard potency in homeopathy. Online, people should remember that because online they might have a choice of 6C, which is very mild, maybe not strong enough to work, or 200C, which is too strong for most people. So for mild symptoms, for a dose is about 2 pellets, and for mild symptoms, taking a remedy twice a day is a good frequency. For strong symptoms, 3 or 4 times a day, and for really intense, sudden symptoms, the remedy can be taken every 15 minutes. Like, let's say somebody who's just can't stop gagging after chemo.
Yeah, and I hate to bring this up, but I've seen the headlines about homeopathy and that it might be toxic. So
You want me to explain?
Yeah, can
well,
you?
Well, glad you're giving me a chance to clear the air. It's all fake news.
Fake news.
The skeptics of homeopathy say it can't work because there's nothing in it, and then they say it could kill you. Well, they can't have it both ways, right?
Really?
Basically, homeopathy works because it contains information. I call it information technology with nanoparticles, which is a huge big deal now in Western medicine. It transmits healing information to your body. It's like reinstalling the software when software gets corrupted. If the body needs the information, it will use it. If it doesn't need it, it will ignore it. So there's no toxicity and no danger. And there's tremendous potential for benefit.
Right, and it speaks to what you had said about the placebo effect.
Right?
Yes. So how do people find out more about this?
Well, honestly, my book, Your Natural Medicine Cabinet, is a great general source of information about homeopathy. It doesn't cover cancer treatment, But there's a whole section on remedies to use before and after surgery, which of course is a third arm of conventional cancer treatment that we didn't have time for in this show. Another thing, there's a whole chapter on the homeopathic treatment of cancer and its side effects in Hahnemann Revisited, the textbook of homeopathy written by my teacher, Dr. Luc de Schepper. It's written for healthcare professionals, but it's useful for anyone in giving an overview of the whole healing paradigm of homeopathy. A Homeopathic Approach to Cancer by Dr. A.U. Ramakrishnan, who serves as a physician to the Prime Minister of India, gives detailed protocols for the homeopathic treatment of many kinds of cancers, and he gives his success rate for each one, typically from 50% to 85%. But it's not a do-it-yourself book. It's for professional homeopaths. But it's worth getting because it can inspire people by showing what's possible, and then they'd have to find a professional homeopath to implement the protocol. A final great resource is Dana Ullman's evidence-based homeopathic family medicine, because it covers the top remedies for more than 100 different conditions that you'd probably treat at home, complete with hundreds and hundreds of research studies to back them up. It's great for reassuring people who've heard the fake news that homeopathy is unproven, and it's available from homeopathic.com.
Excellent. Yes, everybody loves that evidence-based information. So
right, it's the big thing in Western medicine now.
It really is. Well, thank you, Burke, for giving me the opportunity to share some information.
Please join us for the next episode of A Healer in Every Home, in which Janine and I talk about emotional support and stress reduction for cancer patients. Janine Gilarde can be found at Coach for Healthy Living. You can contact her there for a wide variety of holistic services, including lifestyle coaching and nutrition coaching.